They kicked me out of the family gala, all because I bought a $900 house. Hi, I'm Harper Quinn, and what they didn't expect was how my simple reveal would shatter their pride and change everything. Imagine being written off by the people who are supposed to love you most, only to come back stronger than ever. This is my story of betrayal, resilience, and quiet revenge. Before we dive into the story, let me learn a bit about you. If you're a charming lady, please leave the number 1 in the comments. And if you're a dashing gentleman, leave the number 2. This way I can send you a special greeting. Now let's start the story together. They said I was throwing my life away, but for $900, I bought freedom and a crumbling porch to go with it. I still remember the sharp chill of that late fall morning in Flagstaff, Arizona, the way the crisp mountain air smelled of pine and damp earth. The house stood before me, ivy crawling over broken windows, its once white siding now streaked and faded. I carried a folding chair and a chipped kettle in my hands, the few possessions that fit into the back of my old car. It wasn't much, but it was mine. Back then, I had no idea that this ramshackle house would be both my downfall and the place where I'd rise again. The memory of that choice feels like a lifetime ago, both foolish and fiercely liberating. Settling into that broken-down place wasn't easy. The floorboards creaked underfoot, cold drafts sneaking through every crack. I tried to hang a faded floral curtain I'd salvaged from my first apartment in Philadelphia. The rod bent under the weight, and the curtain fell with a soft thud. I sank down on the wooden floor, the chill biting at my skin. For a moment, I just breathed in the silence of a home abandoned, but finally, my own. Flashbacks to a week before flooded my mind, the family dinner that ended everything. My parents sat across from me, glowing with pride as they spoke about Sienna's upcoming wellness retreat in Colorado. $12,000 for a few days of reclaiming her feminine power, my mother said, eyes glinting with approval. My father nodded, his tone light but pointed. Harper, didn't you say you'd wire the funds? I met their eyes and said simply, no, I didn't. I told them I had spent my savings on a house instead. The room froze. Forks hovered mid-air, and Marissa, my younger sister, paused chewing, her smile vanishing. My mother's gaze sharpened, her glass of wine clicking harshly against the table. You've chosen poverty, she said coldly. Don't expect us to support your delusions. My father raised a hand before I could speak. You want independence? Then be completely on your own. The next morning, I was deleted from the family chat group. No brunch invites, no birthday wishes, no Easter, just silence. I stared at my phone when the first message came. Do not come to Easter, from my mother. No love, no apology, just cold finality. Back in my little house, I sat with my back against the chipped paint on the wall. The silence felt heavy, but it was different from the noise of pretending I belonged. I was overwhelmed but resolute. The house wasn't much, a forgotten place, but it was mine, a symbol of everything I wasn't supposed to want: freedom, control, a life on my terms. Suddenly, my phone buzzed. A message from Sienna appeared on the screen. Hope you're settling into your little shack. Her words stung sharper than the autumn wind outside. Yet in that moment, I knew I wasn't alone. This was just the beginning. There's no scream when you're erased, just silence where love used to be. That silence had settled in, deep around me, wrapping tight like the winter chill that seeped through the cracked windows of my little house. The kitchen was dim, lit only by a flickering lamp that cast long shadows over the worn countertops. A faint smell of mildew hung in the air, mixing with the soft hum of the broken fridge. It was a cold, lonely place, but it was mine. I found myself staring at old birthday photos, the kind you keep tucked away in dusty albums. One showed me as a child a stiff smile pasted on my face while the family celebrated. But looking closer, I noticed I was always off to the side, overlooked or cropped out. Those pictures whispered stories of neglect, moments when I was forgotten, left out, or simply not seen. Just then, my phone rang, jolting me from my thoughts. It was Aunt Vivian. Her voice was warm and steady, a comforting anchor in the storm of my isolation. "You were never the problem," she said softly. "You just weren't Sienna." The words hung in the air, a bittersweet truth I'd been trying to grasp. She reminded me to hold on, to remember my worth even when the family chose silence over love. Inspired by her encouragement, I began journaling every day. Sticky notes covered the kitchen walls and fridge, little affirmations to remind myself I was enough. You matter. Keep going. This is your story. Each note was a small rebellion against the erasure I'd endured. Then, in the early morning stillness, a sharp knock at the door startled me. Heart pounding, I tiptoed to the window and peered through the faded curtain. There she was, Sienna, impeccably dressed in a cream trench coat, oversized sunglasses hiding whatever thoughts lay beneath. Her presence felt calculated, cold, a stark contrast to the warmth I'd just found in Aunt Vivian's voice. Without waiting for a response, Sienna called out loudly to a neighbor walking by, "Just sister bonding!" Her tone was sweet but dripping with something I couldn't quite place. Mockery, maybe, or a performance meant for an unseen audience. I watched silently as she swept inside, heels clicking against the worn floorboards, bringing with her a chill that settled deep into the bones of my home. The quiet house no longer felt like a refuge, but beneath the cold and the shadows, I felt a flicker of something new, resilience. The silence around me was no longer just absence, it was space. Space to grow, to reclaim, to stand. And this time, I wasn't going anywhere. She didn't come with an apology. She came with a ring light. The morning light streamed weakly through the cracked kitchen window, falling on battered countertops and mismatched chairs. But it wasn't the sun that filled the room. It was the cold, sterile glow of a ring light and the harsh screen of a smartphone perched on a tripod. Sienna had returned, but this time, she wasn't just walking through the door, she was setting the stage. The moment she pressed "Go Live," her voice dripped with mock sweetness as she panned the camera across the chipped paint and sagging floorboards. "Welcome to my sister's humble abode," she cooed, the faintest smirk playing on her lips. "It's what we like to call poverty chic these days." Her followers chimed in immediately in the chat, flooding the screen with comments, some cruel, some curious. "Is that really her? Looks like a squatter." "Wow, talk about a fixer-upper. Can someone send her some help?" I stood quietly to the side, watching this spectacle unfold in my own kitchen, the very place I had fought to claim as mine. The air felt thick, heavy with the sting of betrayal. Sienna's words were sharp, but it was her performance that cut deeper. The way she flounced about, throwing a lavender candle on the counter, knocking over a dented kettle with a careless flick. Her audience ate it up, watching the narrative she spun, the poor sister needing rescue. But I refused to be the victim in her show. Without a word, I reached out and yanked the phone from its tripod. The sudden silence echoed through the room. "You want content?" I said, voice steady despite the fury simmering beneath. "Here's your headline. Get out before I tell the real story." Sienna's confident mask slipped, replaced by a trembling voice as she sputtered, "I was just trying to help." She gathered her makeup bag and purse, packing with the flair of someone who believes the world owes her sympathy. "This is what I get for being a good sister," she whispered dramatically before storming out, heels clicking sharply on the worn floor. Left alone, I pulled out my phone and searched. There it was, a GoFundMe campaign, raising thousands of dollars in my name, with pictures of me dragging garbage bags and holding onto Aunt Vivian's quilt. The caption read, "Help my baby sister rebuild her life," and the donations poured in, $18,000 and climbing. But as I dug deeper, my shock twisted into quiet fury. The money wasn't going to me. It was flowing straight into Sienna's business account. Her deception wasn't just cruelty. It was calculated exploitation. I closed my eyes and let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. I would no longer be the backdrop for her story. The quiet strength I'd been building would now be the force that unraveled her carefully crafted facade. The battle had only just begun. You can't fight fire with fire, but you can fight fraud with receipts. That idea settled in my mind as I sat at the cluttered kitchen table, my rough house slowly transforming into a command center. Papers lay scattered around me, a glowing laptop hummed softly, and my coffee mug sat half empty, forgotten. Outside, late winter winds rattled the cracked windows, but inside I was determined and focused. And I had stumbled upon something disturbing, a GoFundMe campaign linked directly to Sienna's PayPal account. Thousands of dollars were pouring in, all for her recovery and rehabilitation, according to the glowing comments flooding the page. People called her an angel, a warrior, but I stayed silent. Instead, I meticulously documented every screenshot, every donation, every cruel comment that came with it. I wasn't going to give her the satisfaction of a reaction. Then, my phone buzzed. A message from Jordan Ramirez, a paralegal I'd found through Aunt Vivian's network. Jordan's voice was calm but urgent during our first Zoom call. "This looks like potential wire fraud," she explained. "We'll need to gather all evidence, timestamps, screenshots, transactions, everything." She spoke in plain English, breaking down complex legal terms so I could understand without feeling overwhelmed. At that moment, Aunt Vivian called. Her warm voice cut through the tension. "Patience, Harper. This is a marathon, not a sprint. Keep steady. Truth has a way of coming out." I felt a steady calm settle over me, replacing the helplessness that had hung like a cloud for so long. Days turned into weeks as I worked with Jordan, organizing digital proof, drafting letters, and planning our next move. I was no longer the quiet victim. I was a force armed with truth and resilience. It was empowering in a way I hadn't expected. Finally, we finalized the cease and desist letter, timed perfectly to reach Sienna just before her next live stream. The legal weight behind those words felt like armor, protecting my dignity and reclaiming my narrative. As I sat back and breathed in the cold mountain air drifting through the cracked window, my phone buzzed again. A notification flashed. Sienna Vale is live now. The battle was about to move into the spotlight, and I was ready. She lit the room with affirmations, her voice smooth and radiant as she spoke of healing and forgiveness. The soft glow of chandeliers bathed the ballroom in warm light, casting a golden shimmer on the crowd of influencers and journalists gathered in the upscale Los Angeles hotel. It was spring of 2023, and the air buzzed with excitement and anticipation. But while the guests sipped champagne and exchanged polite smiles, I stood quietly near the back, calm and observant, ready for what was about to unfold. Sienna, the star of the evening, stood at the podium in a shimmering champagne dress that hugged her like approval itself. She smiled easily, her charm rehearsed and flawless as she spoke about rebuilding trust and the power of positivity. Her words flowed effortlessly, painting a picture of grace and resilience. Yet behind that sparkle, I could see the cracks forming, subtle but undeniable. Midway through her speech, a nervous assistant approached, clutching a manila envelope with trembling hands. Sienna's smile faltered as she took the envelope, her fingers brushing the edge with hesitation. The live stream flickered on screens both in the room and online, then suddenly glitched. Abrupt images flashed across the screen, incriminating photos of Sienna's carefully curated facade, private texts exposing her manipulation, and screenshots of the GoFundMe campaign that had raised thousands under false pretenses. Gasps and murmurs rippled through the crowd. The carefully constructed world Sienna had built began to unravel in real time. Her eyes widened, the poised mask slipping as the weight of exposure settled on her shoulders. Cameras caught the tremor in her step as she stumbled from the stage, her exit hurried and shaky. Before chaos could fully consume the room, Aunt Rosalind rose from her seat, her voice steady and clear as she addressed the stunned audience. "For too long, this family has worn masks," she declared, her words cutting through the tension like a blade. "Tonight, we stand for truth, for those silenced and overlooked. Harper's story is one of resilience, not shame." Her public support shifted the atmosphere, giving voice to the truth that had been buried beneath layers of deception. As the room buzzed with whispers and unfolding revelations, my phone buzzed quietly in my hand. A message from Skyline Estates appeared on the screen. "We are reviewing Sienna Vale's activities and have initiated an internal investigation." I allowed myself a small, steady breath. Justice, measured and inevitable, was finally taking its course. The spotlight had shifted, and this time it shone firmly on the truth. They wanted a key. I built a door. Summer sunlight poured through the windows of my restored home, casting warm, golden rectangles across the freshly sanded wood floors. Outside, neighborhood kids laughed and played, their chalk drawings bright and cheerful against the smooth sidewalks. Messages like, "You matter and stay strong," decorated the street, little bursts of color and hope in a world that had once felt so cold. I stood behind a folding table set with lemonade and freshly baked brownies, watching the neighbors drift in and out, exchanging smiles and stories. The cleanup event was simple, but meaningful, a symbol of how far I'd come, from the forgotten sister to a woman who finally owned her story and her space. My phone buzzed quietly in my pocket. I pulled it out and saw a message from Sienna. No apology, no acknowledgement of the past, just a cold request to stay with me temporarily until she could figure things out. I stared at the screen for a long moment before calmly setting the phone down, choosing peace over conflict. Some doors, once closed, are best left that way. Turning away, my eyes fell on a framed photo hanging above the coat rack. It was from my childhood, a picture of me at 8, wearing a glittered paper crown after a school play. In the background, slightly blurred but unmistakably present, was Aunt Rosalind, clapping with a proud smile. That smile was the kind of love I had learned to carry within myself. I picked up my phone and typed a message that felt like a final chapter. "There's no space for lies here anymore. I wish you peace." As I sent the words, a child's laughter rang out, pure and bright, echoing through the warm air. They finished drawing a yellow sun on the porch step, its rays reaching outward like a promise of new beginnings. In that moment, I realized freedom wasn't about keys or locks. It was about building your own door and choosing who you let walk through it. My journey isn't just about an old, worn-down house. It's about finding myself again after years of feeling forgotten and hurt. In life, if we learn to care for and truly listen to each other more, no matter how many hardships we face, family love can always find its way back home. I hope this story serves as a gentle reminder that real strength lies in perseverance and forgiveness. Even if the steps forward are slow, they are steady. If this story touched your heart, please feel free to share your thoughts or personal experiences so we can spread love and hope together. Thank you for listening, and I look forward to sharing more stories with you in the future.